I am so excited. If you are here live, thank you so much. If you are watching the replay, hi, hello. If you are new to me, I am running a workshop series where we've got 9 workshops. We've gone back to the archives and I have remastered my old training. So I've already run 2 workshops. This has been the third. And this is really look, I don't even want to call it email foundations because even stuff that we are covering today, I've worked with some really big clients, big databases, and people that are making a lot of money. A lot of the time we actually come back to this. So for those of you that feel like that you are not selling or you feel like that you have a list and it's just not really performing for you, you have gone to the effort of building up a brand, doing incredible lead generation, but for some reason there just feels like this stuckness. The work that we are actually going to do today is going to provide the foundation that we are going to build upon. So if you're new to me, hi, hello. I have been in business for such a long time, since officially 2008, started trading in 2009, and it started with this little building in the upper left-hand corner. So if you are ever worried that what you're doing is not aesthetic enough or super cute, that's my start. People paid to be there. And it all started with $10 Pilates classes. And then if you follow that around, here we are today. So I'm a business coach and consultant. I'm experienced in e-commerce, service space. I even had a stint in network marketing. So whatever business you have, whatever goals you actually have, don't think that the advice that we're going to cover today isn't going to work with you. You know, I've had with email marketing, I've had pet psychics to private hospitals have really good success with this. So it doesn't matter like what your business is and what your goals are, you are going to get something out of today. So when I first ran this workshop, I ran it in 2021. It's funny because it feels like that was such a long time ago. And I remember that I think Instagram went down. It was like down for like 12 hours. This was back before we had threads. So everyone was on Twitter. They were like, Instagram's down. What do we do? And then shortly after that, I can't remember what country it was, but they banned media and news outlets. And some people's accounts got flagged as like news and it was taken down. And I think if we look back to then, there was a real instability with social media that we had never had before. You know, if you had started an Instagram account, even like a MySpace or a Facebook, you know, you could do really, really well with building up a customer base, a network, a community on a social platform, and know that when you open the app, it was going to be there. And more importantly, that when you open the app and you posted something, that people were going to see your shit. And then it's like all of a sudden in 2021, stuff changed. And it became harder. We had to then battle an algorithm. And then all of a sudden, it became really uncertain if we were going to go to open Instagram and our account was going to be there. And I created this training basically in a response to that. For me, I could see business owners that had an exceptional business. They were so good at what they do. They were spending so much time marketing, but it felt like that the marketing that they were doing, it just wasn't sticking. So they were going and doing their day job, their delivery, whatever it was, you know, seeing clients, shipping out products, creating products, and then they were spending all of this time marketing, but it felt like that when they took their foot off the marketing gas, it's like everything kind of stopped. This for me was where I was like, we need to take email seriously. I did not use it at all transparently in my first business. I didn't. And it's interesting that I can look back and I'm like, a lot of the problems that the business was having. So, you know, we had a lot of leads, but it was then spending time getting those people to, you know, become a Pilates client. It was then ensuring that they keep coming to classes. It was doing market research. And, you know, I had fantasies of cloning myself. And this is where email could have really stepped in and done exactly that. So specifically what we are covering today, the first is your software. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to make a commitment to our software. Then we're going to explore segments. If you want to make more money and actually lessen your unsubscribes, you're going to love this. And then we're going to look at your content and your marketing plan. So for those people that are like, I want to sell, I feel like I have a list, I don't know what to do with it, this is going to have you really covered today. You are going to leave today with a plan and an understanding. For those people that are like, we want to like really dive deep into email, I've got some great news. Give Good Email is going on promo for the whole of June, which is very exciting. We're going to leave that to the end. Today, we've got a hot bloody workshop to go through. What I want to drill home is that you have a business and this is your livelihood. If you rely on feeding your family, paying your bills, sustaining your life, you need to do everything that you can to safeguard that. And I get very stressed when I see people that almost have a heart attack if their social account gets deleted because they are so aware that it's like their livelihood has just been ripped out from them. This is also what I want you to remember is that you could have an email list, but if you don't email that list, and let's just pretend you email them 6 months later, you're also going to have a whole heap of people that don't know who you are. And what we want to start to do is make a commitment for us to use this today. For anyone in here that's a little bit type A, I want you to see this as your ability to clone yourself and to have it work perfectly every single time. For anyone in here as well that feels like that you have up and down days, like maybe it's your mental health, maybe it's your health or it's your kids, this is where as well you just need a good pocket of time to do a lot of this, and it's going to continue to basically pay in dividends. I want you to think right now about your business and your goals. We are approaching end of financial year. So for some of you, it's like if you plan from the calendar year, we're almost at that halfway point. For others, it's like you are going to be thinking about what's happening for the next 12 months. But I want you to think about why you came to this event. And if we really like drill down into that, what you're actually hoping to get and what is actually important to you, and get really clear on what you need right now. I would say a lot of you, I'm just going to take some guesses, sales. You're like, I would love to have some more clients or some more sales with my e-commerce business. I would love to have that. For some of you, it's going to be, I have a lot of people, but it's working out who is keen and what they're keen on so I can do a really effective sales job. For others, you feel like that you are already working a lot and it's like the juice is just not worth the squeeze. You look at the output and the time spent in your business in a week and you are like, I feel like I would be better off to go back to employment. So for some of you, it's going to be, I want to get my time freedom back and actually make more money. What I want to say as well is that for those people that feel like that you don't have the list growth you want, when you actually have a really solid plan with email marketing, you will just naturally share this more because you know the value that your email list provides. So something to think about, because you may kind of have this thought in the back of your head where it's like, I have nothing else to add. I put everything on socials. What are people going to get out of this? I want you to see your email list as like someone's first experience with you. This is an unpaid offer. They are paying you though, when it's with their attention, not yet their cash. And if you were to kind of see this as like a free membership, you are going to think about that differently. So I want you to think about those two things. This is going to be an unpaid offer where people pay with their attention. And then I want you to think about the goals that you actually have and what you would really, really love to get like out of email. Now, really quickly before we get into it, email is not just a place where we send newsletters. A lot of people think that it's just this random little newsletter thing. When I've told people, I'm like, I've had clients make $1 million a year, and they're like, with newsletters? No, because we can use our wonderful automations as well. It is not a place where we want to copy and paste our Instagram posts across. This is one way to have people slowly disengage and then not open your emails at all. It is not a place where we forget about people and then we just send them a last minute sales call to action. We don't want to do that. It is not just another thing to add to our marketing plan. And I think this is where I hate calling it email marketing, because if you think that you're doing enough marketing, you'll be like, we don't need to do something else. Remember, email is us cloned. It's our perfect hire and it's our cheapest hire in our business. It's not something that's just going to work in a silo. So I want you to see email as like the person in your business that is going to connect your sales team to your business development manager, to your accounts person, to your delivery person. So it's someone that kind of brings everything together, and it is not a low ROI, so return on investment activity. If you don't know what you're doing, sure, you will spend a lot of time doing it and you're going to feel like that you're not going to get the outcome that you want. But when you actually have a solid plan, you will see this really benefit in your business. So as I said, we all want more time, we all want more money, we all want all of the sexy things, and email is going to be the vehicle for that to happen. The first step, we have to choose our software. Even if you are solid on your software, it is really good for you to have an understanding of why you have picked your software. What we want to remember as well in business, and this is like a pet hate of mine. I go and I'll look in Facebook groups and there'll be someone who's like, I need some email software. What's everyone using? And every time I see this, I die. And the reason that I die is when people are giving you advice, they are usually not thinking about your situation, your business goals, and where you're going. They are thinking about what works for them. And as someone that runs workshops, let me tell you, it is hilarious that I've had people, and I remember in chat, say, I use this software and I hate it, to then a week later recommend that same software in a Facebook group. fucking wild, right? So what we want to remember is when someone is giving us a recommendation, it is like asking, can I have a chocolate cake recipe? If you like some light, sexy angel food number with like a little dusting of like icing sugar, someone could give you the most rich as fuck, like 7-layer chocolate fudge cake with all of these little curls on it because that's what they like. So we need to remember that when we are getting advice on our software, that oftentimes people are giving it based on what they like and not what we need. So when we look at email marketing software in our business, this is very personal for the business. And it's really important for us to look at what we're doing and where we're going and to make this decision. Now, for some of you, you probably will get swayed anytime you see a new software come out or if someone posts something on Reels and they make it seem like that, I use this software and I make $1 million a year. I want you to remember that the software is the tool, but ultimately you are the person that's holding that tool. So it is going to give whatever outcome you kind of do with it. There are a couple of recommendations that I would make, which I've got a bit of a list here. Now, you need software to scale. So for anyone that is in this growth period in your business, you need to make sure that you have this covered. Because if you are on the trajectory up and then you have to stop and move your database, you're migrating platforms, that is going to put like a screeching halt on your plans while you're kind of doing this migration. It's not the kind of thing that's really simple. It actually can take quite a few weeks. So be really mindful of that. What we want to think about as well is where the business is going. And we don't want to have any band-aid solutions, meaning if you're using something now and it's going to be fine for 2 months, but in say 12 months, you're going to do e-com, you would be far better off to just switch. Now, depending on your business, you are going to need certain features. So an example of this is, if you are e-commerce, you must use an e-commerce software. So if you sell lipstick online, you cannot use Flowdesk. You have to use something for e-commerce, okay? You probably will pay more. However, I want you to think of your future self and be more committed to making that money back instead of maybe losing $50 a month. Be like, if it's going to cost us $50 a month more, how could we make a plan to make $500 a month? And then what we want to remember here is it is like hiring the perfect person for the role. So what it's up to us to do is to determine what our business needs and does this software actually meet the requirements. So if we were hiring someone and we knew that we wanted a virtual assistant and that they had to do A, B, and C, we would look for that, okay? We wouldn't be like, well, they've got really pretty hair, so I'm going to hire them. You wouldn't do that. But for some reason, we do that with our software. Great question. Does this apply to digital products also? No. So you'll be fine with that. Where we need to look at this for e-commerce is if we have stock. So if we've got, say, like 10 bits of stock that need to then integrate into our shopping cart. And then also we have the ability to do something really fun called dynamic content. Is anyone on Adore Beauty's mailing list? Do we get their emails? They are fantastic at dynamic content. They will email me at like the 2-month mark saying, hey, we think that you're almost out of your shampoo. You should get this. And when they give me the shampoo, they give me all of these complementary products around it. And this is something called dynamic content. And if you work with clients and you have e-commerce clients, this is something really fun that you can do. What we need to do this is an understanding of segmentation, which is coming up next. What you can think about with this is this list of things here. Now, you have some absolute non-negotiables. You have to segment. Segmentation is how we kind of group subscribers. So your software has to have the ability of kind of grouping your subscribers somehow. If you can only send blast campaigns to every single person on your list, you've got to migrate. If you do not have automations within your software, you have to migrate. Now, most of the top email service providers, so companies like Kit, MailChimp, Flowdesk, MailerLite have these. But if you are using something usually within like a booking software, so quite often I'll have a client and they'll be like, oh, we use this software and it's our booking software and it has email marketing features. It's like, that's fine if it has that. But if you can only send blast to everyone and you can't automate everything, this is where we would need to bring in an email marketing software to complement that so that you actually can do all of that stuff. And then the last point is it has to have good deliverability. Last year in February, we had some really big changes within Gmail where you had to be properly authenticated. So you had to have something called your SPF, I'll write this in the chat, your DKIM and your DMARC record. How fun. And if you're like, Shit, I don't even know if we have that. You can go to this website here. It's mail-tester.com. You'll need to go into your email marketing software and you'll need to duplicate a campaign that you've sent. And where you go to send a test email to yourself to look and see how sexy it is and kind of pat yourself on the back before you send it, when you open this website, you'll see an email address. You're going to copy that. You're going to put that in, send it there, and you're going to get a whole report. You may be a bit overwhelmed if you're someone that's not too techy, but there is a tab. I think it's maybe the second or the third one down, and it's going to show you all of this. If you do have your SPF record, your DKM, or your DMARC. And if you don't, this is actually going to impact your ability to end up in someone's primary inbox, let alone their inbox. So there is another website that you can have a look at for, I would say, anyone that is a bit, I don't want to say data geeky, but if you really love this stuff and you work a lot with clients, it's called emailtooltester.com. They are probably the leading experts in email deliverability, and they will actually monitor and assess where these emails end up. So for example, if you're using MailChimp, if they send a campaign with MailChimp, where that campaign is going to end up. You can see all of the reports. They write really in-depth articles as well. They don't have all of the software, but they have probably about 25 to 30 of the top main ones. And they also talk about like CRM, integrated email marketing software, which I know that a couple of you had questions on as well. So they're two really good resources to consider. Now, I also have some recommendations of what I would recommend with your software. You want to have unlimited sends, or they are cheap to add on. So a lot of the time you may look at software and it says that you can send 10,000 campaigns a month. And you're like, that's heaps. If you have 1,000 people on your list, that's only like 10 emails per person, unless if you have automations going out. And it's not a problem if it's going to be cheap if you add more, but it does add up quite quickly if that software is going to charge you a lot or it puts a ceiling on what you can do. Another thing that you want to have is great reporting. So looking at the features where it's like, if you send an email, how much data are you going to get about that? Because if you have limited data, it's probably going to mean that you have a limited way to segment. And if you keep hearing me say segment and you're like, I'm really confused about this, I promise that we're going to cover this next and it's all going to make a bit more sense. But if you don't have good features, and again, this is quite common when I see in maybe CRM style software where email marketing is an afterthought, you may not be able to see maybe if you've sent an email and someone's clicked something or how many times they've opened it. And the problem is with that, it makes it really hard for us to kind of make decisions moving forward in the business. And then lastly, my preference is always that you work with a software that directly integrates with what you're using. So if you have like a booking software like Acuity, or something with your business, or it's really important for you to have like your CRM, you need to make sure that everything speaks together. Now, you can use a software called Zapier, but just be mindful that that does have a cost. There is a setup as well with that. My preference is always ease. If it's going to cost you $50 a month more, sometimes it's just worth paying it so that you have your sanity intact. And then lastly, if you are an e-commerce business, you must use e-commerce based software. Some of you may be wondering, should I stay or should I go? If you're in the chat and you're like, I am not like a solid 9 out of 10, I'm putting a ring on it, we are getting married, we are getting matching ass tattoos of each other's face on our rear. If you are not there, pop it in the chat and I will actually give you my recommendation on if you should move or if it's perfect for you. One of the best things for you to think about is if you were to vision your email software as a person, as a hire, and they had a job description, what would you want them to do? What would they be doing? Like, would they be selling? Would they be following up people? Because that is going to give you an indication on the features that you want and how important some things are. Would you like it to integrate with some tech that you are using? And then what do you sell and what will you be selling in 12 months' time? This is really important. Again, for people that are wanting to switch to e-commerce, sometimes it's easier for us to go and do that now. And then do we need any fancy features like dynamic content? What I would love for you to think about is it's like sometimes we'll want to go with a feature or a software because it's super cheap and it features email marketing. But where it's going to be really good if you go with a software that their whole thing is email marketing or automation is the technology and development to make that the best software that it is always going to be considered compared to, say, a software that has email marketing features that's kind of doing that to get you as a client and something that they don't really monitor. And what I want to say is a lot of the time, people don't really use a lot of the advanced features with email marketing compared to a cheaper platform. So this is where you could look at something like Kit, you could look at MailerLite, or you could look at Flowdesk as well, and they could end up being cheaper than what you're paying right now. This is where if you can actually sign up for the free trials, go for it. Sign up for all the trials. That's why they're there. What you need to make sure as well is that when you're actually navigating the back end and the dash, that this actually feels like that it's something that you can use. Where for me, sometimes a preference is for a business to go for a more simple software is sometimes we may think, let me go active campaign because then there's like, I'm not going to go beyond that. But if you go in there and you feel really fucking overwhelmed, you're probably not going to be using your software. I personally use Flowdesk. It has not ever held me back. And because it is an email specific software, they are continually upgrading the software. Does this kind of make sense on why this is important and how we choose our software? I feel like I need tips on how to grow a list before I look at email marketing. No. The thing is, right, the best time for you to actually start your email marketing journey, I hate the J word, and your strategy is before you even have one subscriber on your list. If you have 0 subscribers, you are actually in the perfect point. The next best time is today. Because the problem is, imagine if you've grown your list and then you're waiting to start, you could have people that have been on your list for 3 months before they hear from you. And then when you email them, they're like, I remember who this person is, and they unsubscribe or they report you as spam. So what we want to make sure is that when people join our list is that they walk into a really established business. I like to kind of liken things to stuff, and I see this, it's like, imagine if you have a hospitality business and it's like, let's not organize the menu or go grocery shopping until we have people sitting at a table. Do you think they're going to have a good experience? No. You want to have the menu worked out. You want to have the food in the kitchen so that when people come in, they can get fed. And I want you to see it like that. So the first step that you need to do is choose your software and make a commitment. The second thing that we need to do is we need to look at our subscribers and consider segmentation. The best way that I can explain this is if you go out and you have a crazy Friday, right? You go out, you have some margaritas at Leonard's, you shag the hot bartender in the toilets. When Monday rolls around, you are going to tell people in your life a very different story of what happened. Your mum rings you up and she's like, how was your weekend? You're going to be like, oh, it was great. I went out with the girls. We had such a really good time. I just went to my local. And then you're probably going to talk about something else. The people at work are going to know that you met a really sexy guy. And then the group chat is going to know all of the details of what actually happened. And this is a perfect example of segmentation. Why we want to do this is not everything in our business is going to be relevant for every single person to hear it. And a really simple way to think about this is, has anyone ever had an experience before where you've bought a product and then you get sold the product again, but it's like a one-time purchase? Has anyone had that? Like, you've bought a course and then they're still emailing you about the fucking course? Yeah, how annoying is that? You're like, I've bought the damn thing. Just shut up. And then what happens? You probably don't open their emails or you unsubscribe. That can be completely fixed when we actually look at our segmentation and how we group our subscribers. Anytime you have a really good experience, usually with a business and the emails they send, or you have a really bad experience, it is usually down to they've either done really good segmentation and that email speaks to you, or they are just not doing segmentation. This is a bit of a technical term if my shagging someone in the toilets just hasn't really clicked that much. Segmentation is the division of email subscribers into smaller segments or groups based on set criteria. Typically, it is a personalization tactic, meaning if I know enough information about you, it's like I'm your personal shopper. I know that I can go into a store, and if you love the color red and you love dresses, that I can go in and I can pull some dresses out and I can pull red clothes out. And how good is it when there's a beautiful red dress? And I can show you this and you are like, oh my gosh, you know me so well. So the more information that I have about you, it gives me the ability to tailor everything that I am doing to you so that you actually get a really good result or have a good experience. Oftentimes, this can be overlooked because it is a little bit more. I'm not going to lie. It is going to take you a tiny bit longer. In the grand scheme of things, it won't really matter. There is a really fun stat where if you actually do segmented emails, you can get up to 760% more revenue out of them. How fun is that? So for the people that are making money, if you feel like that you are not making the money that you should be, this is where for you, just simply having some segmentation can actually really, really help that. Now, if you feel like that people aren't as engaged as they could be, like you're sending emails and it's just a bit, this is where that is going to help. You will get less unsubscribes. You'll get better clicks and opens. If you are someone that likes being a little bit petty and exclusive, you don't have to say that. You can just think that to yourself. And maybe you feel like that you put out really good content, but you just kind of have a lot of freeloaders. You have a lot of people that are circling you and they're just not really converting to paid customers. Or you have people and they're just disengaging. You can do some really fun things where it's like, I just sent the hottest freebie to anyone that's opened an email in the last 30 days or the last week. And imagine if you said that on socials, people would be like, holy shit, I've missed out. Guess what'll happen? They'll keep opening your future emails. So it's a way that you can kind of like reward the people that are really, really hot on you, or reward your customers without kind of giving everything to everyone. Because unless you are using close friends on Instagram, we don't actually have the ability to do that. It's like if we are posting for everyone. But when we look at email marketing, it gives us the ability to kind of really serve the people that are hot on us and give back to them. This is where software loves to make it really complex for us. Don't we love this? Depending on the software that you use, it will call it something different, or you will have a different way to segment. So just like with emails, sometimes our software will call that a campaign, a broadcast, a blast, or an email, compared to automations, which can be automation, drip flow, drip campaign, sequence, really confusing. It's the same with how we segment, and there's a different way for us to segment. So depending on the software we use, we can have lists, groups, segments, or tags. You all came through to this event through an opt-in page, and you'll notice on that opt-in, I asked you some questions. I was like, are you a service-based business? Are you e-commerce? Or do you work within the industry as like a VA or OBM? I would say 80% of you click something, which means that I actually was able to segment you based on what you put. So let's pretend that I was selling you something after this event. It gives me the ability to give you very relevant information. So sell to you using e-commerce examples, to give you e-commerce case studies. If you were industry-based, it gives me the ability to talk about why you should consider email marketing, how this is an overlooked service and how you can make really good money. It gives me the ability to kind of like really speak to you instead of feeling like that I'm standing on a stage and speaking to everyone. Now, should we go to the effort? Absolutely. As I said earlier, a lot of what people have problems with and why they don't like email is because the business isn't segmenting. So one of the most basic things that you can do today is when you look at your software, have a segment for people that have bought from you and what offers they've bought, and then have a segment of people who haven't. So that when you are selling an offer, you are not going to remarket it to people that already have it. This is a big one. The biggest mistake is not having any segments, so that when people join your list, they kind of just go into this big pile. Another mistake is having the wrong segments. This could look something like you're collecting information, but the information that you're collecting isn't really going to serve the business moving forward. For example, you may be getting people's birthdays. Now, if you are not sending them a birthday promo, what's the point of knowing their birthday? Unless you have a business and it's around like astrology and you're wanting to collect their birth data so you know how many Virgos you have or how many Geminis you've got. So we want to make sure that if we are segmenting, that we can look at our software and we can look at these segments that we have and everything kind of makes sense. Another thing is not future-proofing our business. Does anyone have like a launch or something really big coming up, or something where you're like, I feel that we have really like something really significant, like I'm launching a course or I'm licensing kind of a framework, an in-person event. Okay, we love this. So some examples here is if you are doing in-person events, one of the best segments that you can have is where people live. What you want to think about here is if you can think back to the form that you all opted in on. You know that I asked you your first name, I asked you your email address, I asked you your Instagram handle, and then I got you to click a little button. It's like, what industry are you? Where I asked you your Instagram handle, that is not a segment. That's something called a custom field. And that will be different for everyone. So you think about it, we all have a different Instagram handle. What we don't have though is a different bucket. We are either going to fit in the e-commerce, the industry, or I'm a service-based business owner. There is nothing outside of that. You will fit in there. So when we look at segments, this is where we want to look at our different buckets. So for those people that are doing events, this is where you may be like, all right, I run events in Sydney or Melbourne, and I also do them online. Okay, maybe this is it. You're looking forward, you're looking at your plan, and you are like, in the next 12 to 18 months, we are only running them in Sydney, Melbourne, or online. What would be really advantageous for you to do is to actually have that as your opt in. Like, select the location that best applies to you. And we would have this as something called a radio button, which is like an either or a drop down menu. And people can select that. Now, what's really cool with the people that are doing in person events is, let's pretend that you have heaps of people online. You've got lots of people that are opting in, you've got 100 people. You've only got one person that's opted in Melbourne and one person that's opted in Sydney, and then 98 are online. Cool, you can do an online event. Or you need to do some kind of targeting to ensure that your traffic and your lead generation activities are getting you in front of these particular people. So you can see here a lot of the time, if we don't have this information, we can feel like that we're doing a lot of work and it's not converting. So this is a way for us to, I'm going to say, validate an offer and ensure that the traffic that we are getting is the right traffic for the offer that we want to sell. What you can do as well with this, you have something with some software where you can have, Flowdesk does this and Kit does this, where it's called link tagging. When someone clicks a link, a tag is added or they're added to a segment. So this doesn't all need to be done in the actual opt-in when they opt in. This could be done within an email, maybe in a PS. So I've had this before with health clients where they have an online business, they have an e-commerce store, but they also have a clinic. And it will say in the PS, like, PS, if you are based in Sydney and you would love to come in for a treatment and you want to hear updates, click this and I'll update you. So they don't make it a big deal on that point of an opt-in, but they ensure when someone joins their email list and they get that first automated email, they can segment that way. So what you want to think about here is what we're doing today is important. What we are doing in the future is more important. Because if we want really sexy results, the results that we get in future in our business happen from the work that we do today and the foundation that we lay today. And you can see here, while I've said here, not segmenting on point of opt-in. You don't have to do that, but it does make it harder moving forward if you don't have this information and then to try and collect that from your subscribers. Now, why another reason that I love this is I want to show you an example. This is one of my subscribers. I use Flowdesk. So Flowdesk really only gives you segments, but it gives you the ability to color code. Now, when I look at this person here, and if you've been in my world for a while, you know that I love to do a bit of a reach out. I might just send you an email or follow you up on Insta. When I do that, I am usually looking at this. And what I tell you is dictated by what I see. So this person here, they've purchased 2 offers. The offers are in pink. They've purchased Who Are You Becoming, which is my $35 offer, and my 10-day money challenge. They've also downloaded quite a few freebies. So they've got my shit hot email content planner, they've gone through my hot business audit, and then they've got my business plan. They have also got some behavioral tags. So the clicks for Give Good Email, and then they've been in a past waitlist. And I know that they're a service-based business owner. So what I can determine here is that when I look at this person, they're probably equally interested in email and they're interested in growing their business. Maybe they're trying to figure me out, or maybe they just don't have a lot of budget because they're purchasing stuff that's about under $100, which there's no problem with that. But this will determine what I offer them. I am not going to go and sell them something that's $9,000 if I don't really see proof in here of that. Now, I'm not saying that that is not going to be something that they could ever consider. But when I look at this, it will determine my next move of what I would offer them. When you have this data, you will never feel stuck in your business. You will never be like, I don't know what to sell. I don't know what to talk about on Insta, because you can look at your segments and you can actually see what people are interested in. And it gives you the ability to then write content for this people. At the moment, I'm offering EFT sessions, either one-on-one or in circles. I struggle with how I can segment this further. Could it be as simple as the example you gave before about recent engagement? Great question. So you can do here things on engagement where you're like, let me see who is really keen and my hot people. And maybe what I want to do is I want to offer these people an offer. So maybe you have an idea of a promo, but you don't want to offer it to everyone, because what we need to make sure as well is that if we are continually in promo mode and we get new people, they'll just wait till we go on sale. So this is where, for me personally, I love to do my promos behind the scenes, and I do them for very engaged segments. What you could do as well is you could segment based on how they want to feel. So knowing that you work with clients and you've got your circles, you may see a theme that comes up where you're like, people want to use EFT because they're using it for like anxiety or their mood or stress. Or maybe they're using it because it's part of like their morning ritual or routine. What you can do here is, if you notice that you have these like different little groups of people, if you put that on the opt-in and people are scrolling through and they see themselves represented in that, they're more likely to opt in. You could look at that. You can look as well here at people that have given you money in the past. So maybe you've got all of your past one-to-one, and maybe with that segment, you're like, okay, cool, we're a bit quiet. Maybe I'm going to just email these people a 3-part email series, getting them to book back in or getting them to join a circle. So again, you can see here, it's like, I want you with your segments to look forward in your business as to what's happening. And what I want to say is, it is very hard for us to do anything marketing related if we don't have a clear understanding of what's happening in our business. So if you're unsure about what's happening moving forward, you can see here how you've got a staff member that can't do anything because you don't know what you're doing. Again, this is where you can look at your business goals for the next 12 months. What are you selling? Who are you selling it to? Very simple. So for me and my business, I really focus on 2 offers, 2 big rocks. I've got Business Bang, I've got Give Good Email. So I can think about those 2 offers. And then in that, I can think about the people that they're for. And I've got 3 of each. So when you all opted into this event, I think about people that are e-commerce, people that work in the industry, people that have a service-based business. When I think about the strategy side, I think about what are people's goals and where are they at? Are they a startup or are they scaling? And then from that, I can then have those segments. So right there, I've got 5. Now, we also can be familiar with how we segment. And this is something I would say a little bit more technical, and something that if you work in marketing, you'll probably be quite familiar with, which is the kinds of ways that we can segment, or the different kinds of segmentation. So we've got our demographic segmentation, behavioral segmentation, psychographic, and geographic. So when we were talking before about the people that run events, this is number 4. This is really relevant for you to know where people live. Or potentially you're like, you know what, I need to know what their interests are. So when we were talking about that EFT example, this could be something where it's like, I want to separate people based on their values. Like, I think that that's a really good way to segment. This also is really interesting for you to get data on what is actually important to people. So if you feel like that you have been marketing and it's just not connecting with people, you can kind of do some market research when people opt into your list. So if any of you have taken my hot business audit, you'll notice on there that there's a drop-down menu. And I'm like, what is most important to you right now? And I think I write money, status, ease, and something else. I can't remember. It's really interesting that in my head, I'm like, everyone wants money. No, there are some people that are like, no, I just want status in my industry, or I just want ease. The fact that you kind of acknowledge that, people then will be like, oh, okay, cool. If I've selected ease, I know with this offer or with this service provider that that's what I can have. But it gives me the ability to then consider all my future marketing and all my future events based on the people that are opting in and the information that they actually give me. Sometimes I get an email and it says, so I can know more about you, would you like to click on A, B, C? Are they manually clicking or segmenting, or should the software do this? Fantastic question. What this would look like within your software, this is called like link tagging. And it's when someone clicks a link, a tag is added or they are added to a segment. You can do this manually. And this goes back to what I was saying at the start with your software. If you do not have good reporting, you can't do this properly. So what I would do here is I would be like, if we're doing that and we're asking people a question, could some of that go onto that point of opt-in and then the part 2 be in the email? And this is all going to be very different for all of us because we all have different businesses that we're selling different stuff with different results. What I want you to think about with your segmentation is just go with what feels right. This is where we don't want to have 50 segments. You don't want to be like, let me come up with a demographic segment and a psychographic segment and this and this. Just be like, if I know my business, I know where I'm going, I know my goals, what makes sense, what feels good, what sounds like it's a good idea on paper. Now, as I said, you can segment by adding link tagging and email, so behavioral, creating more opt-ins. So let's pretend you've got a big database, you've got 5,000 people and you're like, I've got no segments. This has happened before when I've had clients, and if you segment or you have tags, keep a spreadsheet of what they are. So if I have GGE25 as a segment, I should have a spreadsheet where it says GGE25, maybe it links that, and then it gives a description. This segment is for people that clicked a Give Good Email sales page in the year 2025. Because as you are busy and as you're adding more and you really like up the ante on your email marketing, you'll forget. And I've had clients before where we've had to delete every single tag in a database of 20,000 because they can't remember what anything is and we have to start again. So what we want to do now is create a list of segments. Can we think of at least 3 that our business will benefit from having? And what we want to make sure is with these main segments, how can we ensure that people join through a segment? So when they opt in, they select what they are. This is an example of how this can look. So you see down the bottom, we've got these segments, these 3 buckets: business owner, e-commerce. Are you in the industry? Okay, now we've got our software. We know the people. We have our segments. This is where we look at our marketing and our content plan. These are the beautiful emails that you send. These are not the automations, but these are, it's like, okay, cool. I've got really something fun and sexy to tell my audience. I'm going to craft a campaign and I'm going to send it to them. This is where we actually can see our segments in action. If you want success with email, you have to have a plan. And a plan is just not waiting for an idea to drop in and then going and acting on it. A plan is basically us ensuring that the goal that we have becomes our reality by steps that we are going to do to make sure that that happens. This can be very simple. Your marketing plan can be something like, what do I want to do? Who am I talking to? Or you can make it very complex. But we should have an idea of what we want to do. And again, if you don't have an email marketing plan because this feels really overwhelming, this is where I would look at your business. And if you have overwhelm in your business and you're not making decisions, it is impossible to do this part. Remember, this supports your business. If you don't have business clarity, it's really hard to do this. Who has ever felt like that they are doing the right things and that you're just not getting the results that you wanted? I think this is probably one of the worst feelings to have when you're like, I am sending emails. I am doing this. Like, I am doing something Peter approved, and for some reason, it's just not working. This is where if you don't have a plan that works for you, sometimes it's like, if we think about the goal that we want, right? And then we have a plan, but the plan is thinking about something else. It's like wanting to eat lasagna, but the recipe that we are making is for tiramisu. It is not going to give us lasagna if we don't actually have a plan to make that happen. When you have a plan and you actually can look at it, you may realize that the results that you want aren't actually happening because we're not speaking to the people, or we're not drilling down enough, or we're not sending enough emails to actually make that happen. For anyone in here that loves to work in flow, does anyone feel like that, where you are kind of reluctant to have a plan? Because you're like, I need the ideas to drop in. Like, I can't kind of like pre-plan my creative genius. Because it's just me. I would be like, no, I'm an artist. I create art. I can't plan. This just feels off-brand. Your plan is your structure for your creativity to drop in. Because what I want you to think about here is, if you feel especially like you are not creative, does anyone feel like that they just really struggle to come up with ideas? It's like, if I were to be like, send an email today, it would take you more time to think about what to write than it would to write it. Having a plan is your structure for your creativity to drop in. It is basically like a commitment of, this is what I'm going to do and this is what it's going to look like. And I know I'm going to have to show up at this time. So if you know what you're doing and that's decided, I don't think you realize the amount of mental weight that is going to release off you. And then because you have all of this space, ideas will drop in. So your plan could look something like, I am going to email once a week on a Tuesday. Now, you know, if you are sending a weekly email on a Tuesday and that's decided, your brain is then like, okay, cool. It's not going to be like, do we email this next? Who do we email? I don't know what to do about this. I don't think we realize sometimes how much we ruminate on structure. And then the more that we do that, the ideas just don't flow in. So when we have our framework, then all of our time can spend being really creative. It also helps us to organize and prioritize our time. Mistakes that I see in this part is people will either email too much and I've never said that you'll send too many emails, but where this is a problem is if you are sending too many blast emails. So instead of emailing your segments, you're emailing everyone, and you're doing that, say, 3 or 4 times a week. We don't want to do that. Emailing too little is another thing as well. So to put this in perspective, If you have a 25% open rate and you send one email a month, people will open your emails roughly 3 times a year. I hope I've done that math right. So if you're like, my emails aren't working, I want you to think about how many exposures you need. And this is where we need to kind of consider the metrics, consider the audience. And it's like, look at the big picture and be like, given all of this data that I have, and now looking at what I have done, is this going to convert? Then what we want to make sure as well, are you saying we need to send an email once a week, but it might meet a different segments? Fantastic question. So at a minimum, and what I like to do and what I recommend clients do, send an email to your whole list once a week. Just everyone, minus sometimes people if it's talking about an offer or something that they have. Reason being is if you are purely sending segmented campaigns, and this is really new for you, you may overlook a segment and you may be like, oh my God, I literally haven't emailed my actual clients in 3 months. The reason I like once a week is it gives us data on, are our emails being delivered? Do we have any like major problems? What's people's engagement like? It's kind of us staying on top of things and looking at what's happening there. And then what I would add on top of that is more emails to particular segments. And again, I've got a bit of a visual later on. So we want to make sure that with our segments that we are considering them. But if we all could email our whole list once a week, like 2 thumbs up, I'd be really happy with that. Now, another mistake is that you have a goal and then we don't have tactics. So you're like, I want to make $10,000 this month on email. Cool. How are you going to do that? So if we set out to do something, this is where we want to have action steps in place to ensure that that goal happens. Another thing we want to think about is we want to make a goal, but have our measurement of success. I have an email content planner that I'm going to send out post to this call, and you'll see that there's a column and it says measurement of success. Now, this means how do we know if this email is successful? So if I send an email out, what am I hoping will happen? We want to get really clear on what is the juice of what we want. So if you wrote an absolute banging post on Instagram, or you are going live, or you posted a podcast, or you've got an event, have that as the focus. So when we think about our marketing plan, the easiest way for us to do this is think about a goal that you want to achieve in the next month. You know, we're approaching end of financial year. What do we want to do before end of financial year? Like, think about it. What do you want? If I were to just wave my magic wand, my little magical lipstick, what are you doing? Are you making a sale? Are you getting people to register for something that's happening in July? Like what's happening? And if we were to just think about one thing, what would it be? When we think about that goal, who are the segments? Who are we targeting? So who are these groups of customers that we need to speak to? And then when we think about our marketing plan and our emails, this is where I've got something that may help you with this. I have a bit of an acronym called TAVO, which stands for Trust, Authority, Value, and Offers. What you can do is you can write like a little table and have a column that says trust, a column that says authority, one that says value, and one that says offerings. Offerings is going to be really easy because if you have a goal to sell something, that's the offering you're focusing on. If I want to sell Give Good Email for end of financial year, the offering that I am focusing on solely is Give Good Email. I'm not going to be talking about all of these other things and diluting my message. How do I trust people? Now, what you can do here, it's going to depend on how in depth you want to go. You can just make a list of trust. How do people trust me? How in the past have people trusted me enough for them to give me money? Or maybe you want to do this with the segments. So if we think about these groups of subscribers, what does this look like? So I could do this as like, okay, how do I develop trust with service providers and my peers that they know that when they give me money, that they're not going to get something that's really shit and below their knowledge level, that it's something that they can really use to benefit their business? How do I develop trust with service-based business owners so I know what they experience? How do you show authority? So how do you show that you know what you are talking about and that you are someone that people can either look up to or you are the go-to in that area? So think about like how you make someone's life or their business or whatever they're buying better. Why in like the lineup of your industry are you the best? What is it about you? What is it about your process or your approach or your product or how you speak or your background? Now, how do you give value? What makes someone say, holy shit, that was so good? Or I absolutely loved this. Like, what do you actually do to make someone's like time investment or attention investment or actual investment like really be quite valuable? So we are all going to have very different answers for this. What you can do here is you may find that when you're looking at this, where it's like, oh, this is really interesting that I've written this because I had something that came up recently was about this. Awesome. Write about that. Have that as an email. And with this little TAVO acronym, so the TAVO, this is even good if you are planning out your content for you to kind of have a mix of the content that you're sharing. If you do that TAVO acronym like this, it's going to give you like a really good snapshot of the kind of emails that you're sending. Quite often, service-based business owners don't sell as much as they should. They're really good at giving value and trust building. Sometimes they're not good at talking about why they're awesome, but they're continually giving freebies. They're not selling. E-commerce usually only ever sells, which is fine. But what we need to make sure is that we are also like building trust. We are showing why our products are the best as well. So you can see here that I am emailing quite a lot. This was in a launch, and this is really interesting that you can see down the bottom, Bulletproof Babes. This was actually the last time I ran this event, I think in 2021. These were the emails that I sent. This is a lot. Some of these are doubled up. Some of them I've sent twice. They've just been to a different segment. And you can see here the breakup. So where it's GGE alumni, these are the people that have bought Give Good Email. So you can see here, if I'm only emailing the people that haven't bought Give Good Email, and I am not like there's been a whole week where these people just aren't hearing from me. The next week it's fine, but you can see here how it's like if we aren't having an email to our entire list, if we are just focusing on our segments in launch, it can be like we kind of go MIA to the people that have given us money. So when we plan, it gives us the ability to kind of have this visual of how things are kind of playing out in the month. And this is what I like to do. As someone that is really visual, I need to see my effort. And again, if you do this TAVO thing, you can see kind of the content that you're actually talking about. So some of these emails have been repurposed. So I may talk about it to my, the wait list, and then I'll send that out to my entire list minus the wait list. So when we have our segments, it gives you the ability to also exclude people from getting emails instead of your whole list getting it. And again, when we're talking about should we go to the effort, you can see here that first email was sent to my whole list, excluding the wait list of my current clients. The wait list then gets the second email, and then the current clients then get the third. Hopefully you can see this, but you can see the first one was sent on the 19th, then the next one was sent on the 17th, and then the next one was sent on the 16th. So it probably should have been the other way around. So I emailed my current clients first. So I basically validate the content in the email. If my current clients are not engaged by this, no one else is going to be, because they're the people that have given me money. So you can see here the open rate's high, the click rate's high. Then I sent it to the people who were on the wait list minus my current clients. So I sent it to the wait list segment, excluding the clients that had this offer. And you can see here, the engagement's a little less, but it's still pretty good. Now, then when I sent it to my whole list, I excluded the wait list, I excluded my current clients, and you can see here that it's less. What shows, you think about it, there's like a 10% difference in open rates from my whole list to my current clients. My current clients are super engaged. I can email them more because they are engaged, compared to sending blasts to my whole list. And then for the person who asked about how this would look with emails and your content. So you can see here in the left email, we've got a harder call to action. When you look at the upper body of it, it is really reading like a sales email. This is obviously not the whole email, but I'm selling Business Bank. So I'm talking about this is what you're getting. This is what it looks like. These are the outcomes. And then I offer an additional payment plan. When I send this to my newsletter, you can see here how this is a softer call to action. I'm talking about something that's probably going to be really valuable. Even if they don't pay for anything, they're going to get a lot of value out of this email. And then I move that central call to action down into the PS. If we remember what I was talking about with segmentation, this is where we could add something called a behavioral segment by them clicking the link. So this works really well if you have the ability to do this, where if you have your sales page linked, you can add a link tag, then put them in a workflow, wait 24 hours. So it's like the first step is they're going to get added to this workflow. The first part of that workflow is a time delay. So 24, 48 hours. Then we have a condition or a rule. And that rule is, have they bought Business Bank? No. Okay, amazing. Send them an email. Send them an email saying, hey, I'm going to admit I'm a bit of a creep and I actually see you checking me out. Let me know if you have any questions about Business Bank, or alternatively, if it would work for you, I could have time for a call today if that would suit. So if you feel like that you don't want to advertise you do discovery calls, or you're really conscious of how you do something, this is where you can then send that to the people that are keen. Now, for the people that it's like, if we branch off the other side, had they purchased Business Bang? Okay, cool. Do nothing. Finish the workflow. You can make your emails so interactive where if before you were doing a lot of manual follow-ups, or you felt like that people were clicking and they weren't really doing anything, cool. Add that behavioral segment and then add an email off that. And this is where you can see here, you'll email more, but it's very targeted for the people that are quite interested. Can we kind of see the difference here? How it's like we'll speak differently to one segment compared to another? Does that make sense and feel like something that we could achieve with our business? The thing is, this is all going to make sense when you actually go and do it, and then you get results and you're like, okay, cool, that was shit, or that worked really well. And then that gives us data for what our next move is going to be. And this is really your amazing start. If you want to make money with email and you want to have really, really good, sexy results, you can see here how if you don't have this set up, it's really hard to then go and sell. Hopefully from today, you have decided what software that you are going to use. You have made a commitment, or you know now what you need and you can go and explore the software. The next thing is you have an understanding of the segments or the groups of subscribers that you need to target and talk to. And then lastly, you've got a plan. So you know now how your emails are going to look and how we can use our segments in our marketing plan and the mix of content that we need to send. You're probably going to fall into one of three categories. I was going to say, if you hated this, you probably left earlier, unless you have like masochist tendencies and you're like, let me just sit through this shit because I really get off from stuff that's really bad. If that's you, I've ruined your day. Please let me know. I'll PayPal you for a coffee and I'll send you like a little get your day better meditation. Now, if you are like, I just wanted to come and feel inspired, I feel like I'm on the right track, I've got things sorted, this is my next event. We specifically cover selling. To do this effectively, it is really important that you get everything set up that we covered today. Otherwise, I do have a really sexy email marketing program called Give Good Email. I love this. This is my greatest work. If I leave the earth tomorrow and I die, I would be really happy with this being my legacy. I think the reason I love it is because we've had clients just make some outstanding results. Most people make their investment back in 1 month. It is going on promo for the whole of June for end of financial year. It is a comprehensive email marketing program that is suitable for e-commerce, service-based business, and online business as well. It doesn't matter what you sell, who you sell it to, you can get something out of this program. Why I love this so much is it's not about having more people. It's about doing a really good job with the people that you have and selling to them effectively and running your business effectively. The promo that we are going to have for June is 15% off, and that is with the code end of financial year 2025. But if you actually purchase by the 30th, I will give you, I don't want to call it a mini audit, but I will look at your website and what you're doing, and I will say, I would do this, and this, or here is some income that you have to access. That bonus is available if you pay in full, you pay on a payment plan. However, if you do pay in full, you get a 30-minute little session with me. We've got some questions, and then quite a few of you actually emailed through questions. Where do I start with email marketing? Everything that we basically spoke about today. When we think of starting with email marketing, you need software, you need to know the people that you're talking about, your segments, and you need to have a plan. Moving beyond that, ideally we would have a welcome flow, which is an automation that when someone joins your email list, they get immediately. How often do you update, look at your welcome flow? Fantastic question. In an ideal world, we would be doing this quarterly. Most people don't do that. I would say if you can do this every 6 months, especially if you are growing and changing your business, the more that you do within your business, you need to kind of update your like little email team so that they are delivering the right things. If you feel like you've found your flow and your voice and you've gotten a bit more polarizing, you may surprise yourself that when you actually look back to what you've sent in the past with your welcome flow, you're like, this is a bit beige. How do I overcome the hurdle of actually sending emails to my list after building it? This comes back to that structure and the strategy that I was talking about. So at a minimum, once a week. And this is where you make this like a non-negotiable. What I would do is I would tell yourself that you're going to make it simple. They don't need to be visually spectacular. You get my emails. They're pretty simple. We've got the logo at the top. It's plain black and white text, really easy. And make it short. You don't need to change someone's whole fucking life. You just need to make their day a little bit better. Is a freebie the best way to start to gather emails? If it makes you feel great, you can have a freebie, but don't feel that you have to have a freebie to get started with email marketing. I put it online once, and I strongly believe this, where it's like, if people are telling you that you need a freebie to do email marketing, it's like telling your friend that men won't want to go out with her unless she gives them a hand job in the toilets. It's like she shouldn't have to offer them something to get a date. It's like, you are enough as you are right now. And it's like, your brand is enough. And if people love it, they will just opt in. Having a freebie can be really helpful if you kind of want to fast track a sale. And if you're like, oh, I want to really automate this process, where if people are keen on this freebie, they're going to love this and I'm going to sell that. So I think a freebie would be epic if you have something. But if this is going to take you 2 months to do, I would just get started with email and then do your freebie a bit later. And what I want to say is, when you know the value of your email list, as I said at the start of the call, if we see this as like almost like a free membership, it gives you the ability to kind of talk about it in an enticing way and not kind of like throwing people like a little sausage so they take a bite. It's like, you are the hot little sausage. If you're busy enough, do you still send emails? Are there too many emails in the world? Look, there are a lot of emails, and lucky for us, a lot of them are really shit. The thing is, you're you with your unique perspective, your unique take. Send as many emails as you want, and the people that want to read them will absolutely read them. If I am busy, do I still send emails? Absolutely. I have the opinion that if I get completely booked, I'm happy to book clients in 2026. And if they want to work with me, they'll wait. So even if I am fully booked and busy like Bella Hadid, I am thinking about my future self and the fact that she's probably not. And I want to make it easy for her. How do I ensure my emails make it through to the end user? So you've got your DKIM, your SPF record, and your DMARC. We have in Give Good Email a whole module on deliverability, because it is quite a big subject. We also have one on segmentation as well and automation, but you want to make sure that you have your authentication set up. How do I capture an audience to keep them wanting more and turn subscribers into consultations, writing offers or presenting invitations? Okay. How you capture their audience is, you want to make sure that when someone joins your list, you're emailing them immediately. And that's with a welcome flow. So you get them immediately hooked. What will get that outcome that you want is speaking directly to the person, which again is segments, so that people know that this really specifically applies to them. How do I grow my email list and segment it properly? We did that today. A lot of people want to wait to grow their email list and then they do this stuff. You don't want to do that, because you're just going to get a bit overwhelmed. And let me tell you, most of my consulting work is fixing people's email lists where they are overwhelmed and they didn't do all of this stuff. And let me tell you, if you're stressed about fucking this up with 100 people, you'll be terrified when we've got 15,000 people. How do I know when an idea is best for email versus Instagram? How do I give subscribers a little something special? I love this question because there's no right or wrong. If you can write an Instagram caption, you then decide, is this going to be better off as an Instagram caption, or is this going to be better off as an email? Where it can be really good as an email is sometimes when it comes to social media, people don't feel like they have safety to respond in public because they could have a polarizing opinion. Or if they feel that the comments are swinging one way, they may not want to say something different because it could be a pile on, or it could be something where it feels quite emotional or personal, or there is sensitive data. So if you want to get people talking or giving you information where you feel like that you want this to be more of exchange, see what it would be like to send that out on email. What you can do is, if you actually write a post or something does well on Insta, you can kind of expand more online. So for example, I put up something last night around like the energy exchange with like content. This would be the kind of thing where it would be good for me to link that and provide like some kind of, I'm going to call it backdoor commentary. So I could kind of talk about it like that and then link back to what I did. How would I determine if email marketing would be a valuable business development channel? 100% it is. The thing is, if you are looking at this from a BD perspective, people check their inbox. They check their inbox like basically every single day. Even if an out of office is on, if they know that they've got something important coming through, they will check it. So if you are in like a B2B space, you work with corporates, you work with clients, have an email list. I think that is every single question that was submitted. If I accidentally glossed over you and you're on live or you're watching the replay, please find me. I'm more than happy to answer. But before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you so much. And if you really want to go deep in email, just get Give Good Email. Trust me. I've loved this. Thank you, everyone. Have the sexiest day and go and make so much cash money. Mwah. See you later.